Good evening, and welcome to What's Your Story? My guest tonight has asked that her real name not be used. We ask that all viewers respect her privacy and not post her name should you know her. Her story contains a riveting chapter on the sexual abuse that she endured for years as a young girl. There is a chapter on growing up in a single-parent home with 9 siblings and an absentee father. Moving forward, we learn about her struggles with an alcoholic husband and 4 children to raise, basically by herself. Another chapter takes us deep inside her desire to be the protector that she never had. We witness her triumph when she achieves her dream of becoming a police officer. She shares her feelings as to how that dream almost became a chilling nightmare when she came close to committing suicide. Welcome to the show, Jane.
Thank you.
Jane, I understand that you came from a family of 9 children, and there were 7 boys and 2 girls. It was a single-parent family with your mother basically being the major provider. Where was your dad?
I actually had 7 girls and 2 boys.
7 girls and 2 boys, okay.
And my dad was absent. He took many a sabbatical.
Okay.
He came home long enough to conceive a child and then leave, and leaving my mother to be the sole provider for all of us.
Why was he not present? Was he working or was he?
He was unstable,
Okay,
an alcoholic,
okay,
abuser, physical abuser. And when he came home, we often witnessed that if he was drinking. If he wasn't drinking, he was totally different.
So you witnessed him abusing your mom?
Yes.
When he was home and he was drinking?
Yes.
And what age do you remember this happening to you?
5, between 5 and 10. And then again later when he would return. He never was there for a long period of time.
So it's the twin-edged sword, daddy's home, but oh boy, now look.
Yeah.
That kind of thing you lived with.
Actually, yes. Yeah, it was, you never knew what to expect.
Yes. Jane, how did your mother do it? How did she raise you guys?
She knew she had to. She didn't have an option. So her ability to care for us was from within her. She knew she couldn't fail us. And she knew she needed to feed us and clothe us. And we certainly didn't have, the best of everything, but we had the best of everything. We always had family dinners, and we're taught how to work hard and earn everything that you have, and to share and be good to people and be kind. And she was really a very good provider and a good influence for all of us.
Tell us about your mother. Was she funny? Was she strict? What kind of a woman was she?
She was both, but what the best part about her was she was loving. I remember one time she was on the phone and I was fooling around and being, a little pesty kid, and she kept pointing the finger and saying, "When I'm done, you're gonna get it." So I ran upstairs and I closed my eyes and I laid in bed and I was like, "Just pretend you're asleep, pretend you're asleep." And my mother got up there and she was like, "Are you asleep?" And I was like, "Yes, I am." And boy, did I get a whack. But I never did that again, and afterwards we talked about it, and I understood, that you got to be polite and respect people when they're on the phone. And she was a good person. She loved us with all her heart, and that's what makes a family.
Are either of your parents still with us?
My mom is with us.
Your mom is still with us?
Yes.
Okay. And she's doing well, I hope, or?
She has some health problems.
Okay, all right. And she's with you? Or you?
Yes.
Oh, so you have your mother now?
Yeah.
Okay, taking care of mom now.
Yeah.
It's mom time.
Full circle.
Yeah, it's mom time now.
Yeah, full circle.
Absolutely. Jane, I understand that you were sexually abused as a young girl. This abuse continued for a long period of time. Who was your abuser without naming him? And was it a family friend or a relative or?
A family friend that everybody trusted in town. And it was a very difficult experience. In fact, to this day, I have a hard time thinking about it. I remember when I had a call once, I was helping somebody and they were a victim, and it all came back. And I really had to work through it mentally. And there's the guilt and the shame that comes with it, even though you as a child shouldn't carry that burden, but you do, because as you get older, you learn how unhealthy and dirty it was. And the older you get, and the more healthier you get, you realize that you're not responsible for that shame. And so for me, it's taken a long time, but I'm finally at peace with it, understanding that it did happen. It was an experience I never wanted. I wish never on anyone. However, it was an experience that shaped me in ways that helped me also.
How long did the abuse go on, Jane?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
Beginning at what age?
8 to 11.
Did you tell anyone about the abuse at the time? What was happening to you?
No, I never disclosed it until I was married. And you know, once you're married, you're intimate, and it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel right because of all that past history, and that was my only history, and it was unhealthy history. So once I started talking about it, I felt better because I had somebody in my corner who wanted to protect me and understood the pain. And then I later learned that my older sister was a victim of him as well.
For the same
Of
period?
the same person.
The same person for the same period
Yeah.
of time?
Different period of time. She was older, so she was first.
She was the first victim.
First victim.
Did she tell anybody, or do you know?
No, we later learned, I later learned later in life that we just happened to be talking, and I felt like disclosing to my siblings, and that's when she disclosed, and was very sad because she felt that if she said something, I wouldn't have been a victim. And
Really? That's the kind of guilt she's carrying
Yeah.
about that.
yeah.
If she had spoken up, it wouldn't have happened to you. Yeah.
Absolutely. And for me, I had younger siblings. Once it happened to me, I became the protector for my younger siblings. No way are you staying there, you know, and I was adamant that they were never staying there. And they never did, which was good, so.
And at this stage, your mom still doesn't know what happened. Is that correct? Or
She does know, but that too is also shame for her and guilt, because, you know, did I do enough to protect my children?
Yes, yes.
I should have been there, kind of, you know, that feeling. And it's, you know, it's nobody's fault, but that man who decided to prey on children, you know, and you have to see it as it is.
now, Jane, you've carried this a number of years inside of you. You said you talked about it when you got married, but by and large, you had it locked away and you were carrying that.
Yes.
What made you decide to come here, do this show, and talk about this now? What is it that you want people to know?
I don't ever want anyone else to experience what I experienced. It's disgusting, it's shameful, and it's not fair for children to have to be a participant in something they're not physically or mentally or emotionally ready for. And my hope is that listening to what happened to me, it'll prevent it from happening to someone else. That's my hope. And even for parents, I know once I became a parent, I was so overprotective because of my experience that my children never slept at strangers' houses. They only, went to people's houses that we knew very well and trusted. There was never any, overnight camps that we weren't familiar with. Always the buddy system when they were going out. So it was always in the back of my mind to prevent that for my children to experience that. And I did. I did prevent that, and I think it was because I was so vigilant about that.
Yes. Jane, imagine your abuser is sitting here facing you now. What would you be saying to him?
Shame on you. Shame on you for taking the innocence from a child.
And what are the warning signs that parents should look for out there? You said this was a trusted, longtime family friend, and people know about he suspected them. Are there signs that parents should be looking for? I mean, after you had been improperly touched, and did you just go on, or did you become reclusive a little bit, or more shy, more quiet? What are some of the signs? What are some of the things you exhibited when this was going on? Do you remember?
Yeah, bedwetting.
Ah, bedwetting.
Bedwetting, also very anxious, quiet, wanted to overachieve to make up for that, wanted to excel in school to make up for that. And I think for parents, telltale signs of a person who is the perpetrator is they try to get too close to your children. Try to take advantage of opportunities when children are vulnerable. Perhaps, like in my case, my father was an alcoholic. He tried to pitch in and help, but his ulterior motive was to get to the children, the daughters, And I think you have to watch people and know them and make sure that your children are safe around them. And even relatives are known to do it as well. It's usually someone very familiar to the child that is the perpetrator. Yes.
Earlier you said that it shaped you in positive ways and not so positive ways. What were the impact of this abuse? How did it shape your life? You said it was very difficult for you to trust your children with people.
Right.
Did it cloud your judgment? I'm assuming your abuser was a male, is that correct?
Yes.
Your father was an absentee father, an alcoholic, and your abuser is a male. So did it shape your view of men or males, or how did it impact you as a young girl growing into womanhood?
I learned how to read people very well and watch them and watch their behavior and study how they react to people in situations and just people in general, especially around my children. And I usually was right on the money, and that helped me because it helped me be aware of my surroundings much more. I was very cautious around men. I wasn't the type of woman to go out and just be with anyone. It had to be a relationship made of love and commitment before anything. So that helped, and to me that was a positive experience from it. Negative ones are you're not trusting of people who really deserve to be trusted.
Yeah, it makes you distrustful in general.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, and I can't imagine having something like that inside of you for years and years, trying to deal with it and trying to cope with it, and did you medicate yourself? Did you seek counseling at some point?
No,
or?
I didn't seek counseling until my marriage was coming apart due to alcoholism, and which is another thing, continuing a cycle. When you have an alcoholic father, you often marry an alcoholic. However, in my case, my husband wasn't an alcoholic when we got married. He became one. And then looking back, though, there were a lot of telltale signs that he was heading in that direction. You know, just the way his behaviors were and the way he handled stress. After several people died in his family, it became a competition of how numb he could get from the alcohol. And then when it became too unsafe for me to have the children around, that's when I decided that was not an option. And then I needed to go and move on my own.
Do you have any positive childhood memories that you held on to or continue to hold on to about being a child growing up in such a large, rambunctious family?
Absolutely. I can remember all of us. There was 9 of us, so we could have our own baseball team if we wanted.
Yes.
Several of us were very athletic, so we'd play sports together. Capture the flag was one of our favorites. We also played general store, and we had rocks for coins and leaves for dollar bills, and we didn't have, you know, the cell phones and the iPads and all that. We spent hours outside, and the street light was time to come in, you know. And we had a garden. We gardened with my mom, and it was just great watching that and being part of that. The holidays were wonderful. My mother, having 9 children and working 2 jobs, would make sure that all of us had our own individual pie every holiday.
What was your pie?
Back then it was pumpkin.
It's changed now?
I like apple.
You like apple now?
I do,
Okay.
I do.
Your mother sounds like an extraordinary woman.
She is.
She just sounds extraordinary from what
Yeah.
you were talking about.
Yeah.
Like a backbone and of steel or iron or something.
Her children came first.
Yeah.
And that's what she taught me is no matter what, your children come first. No matter what.
How do you feel about your dad today? Have you come to grips with your feelings about your father and who he was and what he did and did not do to assist you, your mother, and your siblings in growing?
I do, and I have, and I was with him in his final hours when he died in 2012 from cancer. My sister maintained a relationship with him, and she was alone with him, and I didn't feel that was right for her to be alone and have that burden, so I stayed with her. It was a struggle. It was a struggle watching him be that ill and take his last breath. I wanted to tell him so much, and before he passed, I made a point of going to visit him and talking to him. And I didn't say a whole lot, but I did tell him this, that sometimes the absence of a parent is the best gift they can give you. And because he was so dysfunctional and unstable, that was the best gift he gave us, is to be away, because the stronger parent did the better job. And anytime he was around, it was so dysfunctional that it was chaos. So, you know, sometimes life works the way it works because it's intended to be that way. And unfortunately, I don't have the memories of having a dad root you on at all your sports, or, you know, give you away at your wedding, or he never knew my children. You know, so that I truly missed, but I also would not expose my children to that because of how he was. And there was never any change to the very end. So for that, I do miss that. But I understand why he stayed away.
Excuse me, go on.
Sure.
Yeah.
I just knew he had to have known that he couldn't bear the responsibility. So he left.
9 kids.
Yeah.
What was it, 7 girls and 2 boys?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit, tell the viewing audience, if you will, Jane, a little bit about your brothers and sisters. Are they all still with us, or?
Two have passed.
Okay.
Two sisters have passed. The youngest from my mother's second marriage with my dad.
Okay.
And then the youngest from my mother's first marriage.
Okay. So what are they, the ones that are still with us, what are they doing? Are they in careers now, or what do they do? Just a brief.
Most of them are retiring. They're at their time in life where they can retire.
Ah, that's wonderful.
Yeah. And then some are still working. And we get together as much as possible. We get together for my mom. Now that my mom is with us, we're the hubbub, you know. Everybody comes there, so we get to see everybody.
Yeah.
And we have, picnics and get-togethers and birthday parties for her. And we had a surprise 80th, so everybody came. So it was wonderful.
So where do you fall in that 9-sibling?
Number 6.
Number 6.
Yeah, I became a negotiator early on.
Yeah. So, yeah. Did you live in Connecticut all
We
night?
did.
You did?
We lived in Massachusetts for a while and then Connecticut, the remaining.
And you guys went to school in the local area, high school and all that in the local areas?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. What was your high school?
Hartford.
I always ask, is it Hartford High Owls?
Yes, Hartford High Owls.
Yeah. What year did you graduate?
I actually got my GED.
All right, okay.
Yeah, I got my GED in 80.
Okay. Still determined to get that education done?
Oh yeah, and then I went off to college for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you in tight with your siblings now, most of them?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
We keep in touch. There's only one in state with me, and then the
Okay.
remaining are all over the country.
Okay. And you had not talked with your siblings about your experiences growing up as a young girl, right? Just
No.
a sister that shared
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
So they didn't know anything about that.
They do know now.
Yes, yes.
But we don't really talk about it a whole lot.
Okay, all right.
I think, once it was said, and
And that's it, yeah.
let it lie.
All right, well, listen, Jane, don't go away. We're going to do part 2 of this, okay?
All right.
So this first part is riveting. I know people will really want to hear the second part of your career, how you became a police officer and all of that. All right, so sit right there, don't go away. That's all the time we have for this portion of tonight's show. Thanks to my guest, Jane Doe. Everybody has a story. What's yours? Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, good night.